Alright, we're reviewing WaffleGod, our new recruit, unsolicited because due to some scheduling shenanigans, we haven't had some really good proper VOD reviews with him there to cover at least a little bit of his gameplay. So I'm actually in this game, so I kind of sounded like this was a good example because he was kind of, I think he was complaining about like May and stuff, and I thought, well, it sounded like he was still struggling, so might be a good game to look at, see what was going on. And in some ways, me being here is somewhat helpful because it is relevant to Lucio. Lucio has 3 jobs. He's similar to Diva, in that their jobs. Diva has way more jobs because she's Diva. She does everything, but there is some overlap in that. One, Lucio's job one is to enable the main tank. Two, peel for the rest of the team against flankers or any other threats that threaten, the back line or whatever. And three, be kind of Reddit-y and assassin-y and do Reddit Lucio things. Kind of like what you're doing here, but a couple of things. One, you don't know what the enemy team's running at. You just walked on a spawn. If they had like a Widow, this is a good way to get picked and die immediately. And they have a Hanzo who could get lucky, but generally you're on walls, you're bouncing around, you're probably pretty safe, but any kind of hit scan can really mess you up, and especially a Widowmaker. So be a little bit careful of just walking out of spawn and being this aggressive. Because even though we're far away, this is aggressive. Like, you are by yourself, they all see you. This is a good way to get shot. Um, you don't know what's around the corner. So, especially like for instance, they have an Orisa. Like, she could yoink you into this spot. Like, let's say you're like, you want to nope out, you take one hit, McCree shoots you once, and you're like, you know what, I'm done. You get yoinked by the Orisa, you're going to stay here, and then you're going to get shot a whole bunch, and you're probably dead. So, be careful about being so aggressive so early on when you don't know what your threats are. A lot of things they say is know your threats. You have no idea what your threat is. You know what you're walking into. It's dangerous. So, but to go back to your jobs, enable the main tank, job one. What are we doing to enable the main tank here? Nothing. Um, so the thing about it's a little bit it's different when we're talking about dive and we're talking about Winston. Like, because you're on speed here and you're on speed for a while, which is a mistake. Because as dive, like, we don't really need your speed. We're all fast anyway. Doomfist doesn't need speed. Solix doesn't, like, no, we don't really need speed. And Reinhardt needs speed a lot, but there's always the question of like, when do you speed and when do you heal? And when we talk about enabling the main tank, what that means is you have to basically know what the main tank wants to do, and then with speed or heals, make sure that happens. So in this case, I don't need speed because I'm not gonna like walk into them really fast. I don't need that right now. What I am doing as Winston is I am basically stuffing them, like where I'm moving the mouse here. I'm like trying to hold this corner and stuff them out of the point. Like, just keep pushing them back, making them think they can't come onto the point, even though they actually have the stronger comp to stand on the point. Because we got here first, we get like positional advantage. So I'm trying to maintain that positional advantage, keep them off the point so that we can basically cap it for free without having to actually win the fight. Because honestly, without an opening, we might not win this fight because they have us outgunned effectively. We are outgunned here. They have a Roadhog, they have a Zenyatta, Hanzo, McCree. They completely outdamage us. Doomfist, he gets a pick, great. We swing in our favor. We can then outgun them because we're now more people than they are. So we can win with that. But if we're not more people, then like they just outdamage us straight out. Um, they also kind of, well, they don't out heal us. Lucio's in, it's a wash, but they're a little bit more dangerous to deal with. Like, I don't want to be in their face really, but I'm the main tank. That's what I have to do. So what I need is heals to do that. Since we can see like this entire fight, if you look at my health, this entire fight, I'm like critical the entire time. I'm just barely hanging in there. I do die at some point. Like, I need heals. So try and like I'm not gonna do it. no main tank is gonna, like, unless you're fusions, I guess. Like, no one's going to dictate to that level of like, okay, I'm stuffing them in here, guys. Give me heals. Like, I ain't gonna tell you shit. You're gonna have to know what I'm doing, what I want. It's how it works. So in this situation, like especially with a Winston, there's usually little reason to ever speed a Winston in general. So like you're probably gonna want it on heals a lot of time. When you switch to speed, it'll be for a very specific reason. I know there's a good example. I have watched ads, so I know there's a good example later when you use speed. But most of the time, we're gonna want heals. Um, and when we're talking about being aggressive, like the other thing is gonna be wanting to focus a target that someone else is targeting. So, in the situation where I do dive, trying to, push with me. Let me talk a little bit about what you just did, because here's the thing. This is the reason why I'm like, yeah, put him on the team. You're a little bit lower EL than everyone else, but there is promise here. I do like a lot of your little positioning things, stuff here and there. Like I like stuff like this when you're on this wall, and you're bouncing around. I like this. You're in partial cover with this post. You're taking this higher area. Anyone who shoots you has good odds to miss, and it does distract from like messing with D.Va. I think I get rezzed, and like a lot of this little stuff does help. It's good stuff. The issue is like knowing when to do it and stuff like that. Because at this point, like we know our threats at this point, but at the same time, it's like it doesn't matter because you're dead either way. So, like if he's gonna hook you, he's gonna hook you regardless of where you're standing, and where you're standing there is like the best chance of you maybe avoiding it. And yet you only die because he high noons, and that doesn't miss. But the whole thing, like it works out because we did get, we lost the fight, and yet we actually kept the point. Huzzah for me as the main tank. It worked. But if you were healing me though, it might have maybe we win that fight. We just straight up win it. And that wouldn't be good. Who knows? Even if your heals are low. So this is another like, okay, we're redditing over here, right? We came over here on this corner. What's our goal here? What's the best we can hope for, and why are we doing it? Because again, the what I'm actually I'll just play it because we just see what happens. You die, like you die, mostly because he gets a lucky right click, right? I think he just right clicks you and you get domed. I'm not gonna like go back and slow it down to see if you actually do get like if you're full and then you just get deleted. Because the point is he could have hooked you. Hanzo could have just gotten a random headshot. Risk versus reward. What's the reward for doing this? You gain maybe a little bit of alt charge. I guess maybe if you distract enough of them, we can go in and like pick them off and stuff. I guess there's a high reward, but it's also extremely high risk because they could just shoot you and you die. And we weren't really ready for that. Like again, I don't call it out. I don't really shot call too much when I play. I'm waiting for everyone to regroup still. I'm not going in yet. So, if you had survived a little longer, maybe this works out. But this is like it's pretty aggressive and dangerous. It does not work out. You want to avoid that kind of thing and be extremely careful with it, because when they like just as an for instance, when they have that much potential to just kill you, you don't want to stand like where you're here with your back to the wall, like bouncing up and down. You want to just hug this corner. You want to hug this corner like crazy, and just sort of peek them. Just peek them and poke them and peek them and poke them. Peek them and poke them with your wubs. Because if, for instance, they do throw a hook at you, then you could theoretically break the hook when you go back. But the thing is you don't want to do this too much. Because actually this happens later, but I'll just mention it now. There's a point where you actually do peek and poke, and you get headshot by a Mei, and you end up dying, because Mei hits for like 150 for a headshot. It's almost capable of one-shotting you. But Hanzo can one-shot you. If you keep peeking and poking, there's nothing stopping him from just landing an arrow right in your head. In fact, he can Sonic the wall and see when you're doing it, if he has Sonic. So, repeated peeking and poking is dangerous. But if your goal was to distract and pull them away, you do not need to be here for very long, and you don't need to poke for very long. Literally 2 wub volleys and just like book it. Because yeah, you're very fast. They won't catch you. They don't have Lucy of their own. You can wall right away super easily. So if your goal is distract, be a lot quicker skirmisher and like super safe and run away very quickly at the first sign of danger, because the way you do it is very, very dangerous. And yeah, actually, now that we've rewound it, you were like almost full and got deleted. I think you got like almost a perfect right click in your head. It was very lucky on his part. Definitely not skill, only luck. But that's like the danger of what you're doing. But now here's the thing: we push in, and we win without you. And maybe you could argue that it's because some of them were split. But it's it's not a good way to play, because you'd much rather be in the fight. You know, much rather be in the fight, making a bigger difference. It's always better that way. So okay, let's. Oh yeah, so we're pretty close to all, and I would say you should be, once again, you probably should be healing here. Um, just to get, like, there's a little bit of poke damage, and yeah, Mercy's farther away, but your ult is way more important, way more impactful. Like, you were far better off making sure that you have your ult for next fight in case you need it. Mercy's is less important, so it's very minor. Oh yeah, this is another, like, enable the main tank. So here's the thing, not gonna lie, I feed my brains out here. Straight up feed. I go in. I thought the bomb was going to give me a bigger advantage. So I go in. I start tickling the Hanzo. He ends up like doing more damage than I thought. He might have got a headshot, I don't know. Or maybe McCree helps him out. I thought the bomb would give me more cover. Didn't happen. I die. Here's the thing, though. Now, once again, I don't communicate this or anything, but look at the main tank, figure out what the main tank's doing. Now, I think you're back here protecting the baby diva from the bomb, like, to remech. Not a bad idea. But again, they don't have much dive of their own. They do have a Winston now, but I'm not even sure if you're aware of that, because he just switched. And ultimately, like, baby diva's pretty safe. I mean, if they had like a bunch of dive, if they had like a Tracer and a Genji and all that shit, yeah, okay. But that's really on Carl to just safely remech. Carl should just be around the corner remeching if he's in any danger. Once again, focus most of your attention on what the main tank is doing and enable him. I go in, and yeah, I feed, but here's the thing. I do get Hanzo down to half. If you had followed me in, speeding and healing as needed, because at that point, you actually speeding me in and then healing me once I was engaged would have been the call. So that's kind of an instance, because again, I'm walking forward, I'm not leaping in. But yeah, going in with me, assisting me in killing the Hanzo, because it was, I do corner him in this corner, so it's like, you know exactly who I'm trying to kill. If you follow me in, or Solix, or Genji could have also done that. I don't know what Solix is doing. We're not VOD reviewing her, though, it doesn't matter. Would have assisted me killing the Genji, or killing the Hanzo at the very least, and then, you know, I get healed, maybe I speed out, like, we'll go from there to figure out what happens, but it probably becomes way more successful. I think there's an old saying of, like, one person, like, feeding is a mistake, but if the whole team feeds, it's a plan. So, again, enable the main tank, because, yeah, if we both go in, we probably kill the Hanzo, and this is, like, perfectly fine, and we just roll them. But I go in myself, I assumed I would get backing, and it would work out. It does not work out, but I'm not saying that, like, it's your fault I died, but that's part of the role, is, like, the main tank's gonna go, because keep in mind, the main tank never knows what's happening behind them. They can't see behind them. Reinhardt can kind of rotate the camera, but he's always going to still want to look forward, because he's more concerned with what's happening in front of him. So even though Reinhardt can rotate the camera and, like, know what's happening behind him, he probably isn't most of the time. So, like that, like, I just assume people are with me on this, but they weren't. And I felt like it was a safe assumption. So this is an instance of, like, yeah, help me out. I don't know what, like, Solix should also been there. Maybe even Speedy. Like, everyone should have probably pushed in with that bomb, because it was an opportunity. I think because the Roadhog was, like, a little bit far forward, maybe that's why McCree wasn't there, but, like, I don't know. You definitely have the opportunity, so that's what we're talking about. Also, so, actually, let's rewind it a little bit, because this is now talking about ultimates. So I'm dead, right? Like, I fed, I'm dead. I'm not back in the fight yet. Maybe a little bit farther than that. Cause wait. Okay, yeah. So, whoa. So yeah. Okay. So they whole hog. I'm dead. When are we planning to use our ultimate here? Right. Like we have a very powerful defensive ultimate, but again, like this is something that you should. Since we're on the VOD reviewer, it's hard to tell like what you're when you're hitting tab and you're assessing what the enemy team has. Like I always recommend hitting tab between every single fight to reassess what you should be doing, what you could be doing, who you're worried about, etc., etc. So, and the reason why this is relevant to Lucio, because it's usually more relevant to other characters, but where it comes up for you is like when do you want to use your sound barrier, right? Like when do you use it? So normally you use it to counter an enemy ultimate, like a Genji blade. Okay, Genji's gonna blade. I'm gonna use beat. There, alt negated. A few other alts you could do that with. We're not gonna go in the whole thing because it's not relevant to this VOD. What is relevant though is that there actually is no good opportunities to beat. They don't have a blade. They don't have like a visor. I don't know. There's a few like a graviton maybe, earth shatter. Like there's a bunch of alts, but they don't have any of them. What Hanzo dragons? Honestly, you just speed everyone out. Like it doesn't matter. Same thing with Deadeye. Like you just speed them out. Your speed is actually the best counter to like most of these ultimates. Now I'm not saying beat as soon as you see Whole Hog, because again most people just get knocked back. They don't necessarily die. Whole Hog's more for zoning. It's not really good for killing most of the time, unless you really can nail someone against a wall. Um, so you're not really saving it for anything specifically. To like show the enemy like see they have transcendence, but Zen doesn't really want to use it because he wants to save it for our blade. Because blade is something you definitely want to counter alt. So you're not going to see Zen use his transcendence, even though he could. And if he did, he'd win this fight. But he's not going to because he's worried more about blade. Even though we're like only halfway to blade, he isn't going to use transcendence because of that. But you don't have that problem. You can use beat basically whenever you want. So the question is, when do you use it? Main tank is dead. They just whole hogged, which could be like really bad for us. They're high nooning. They're doing a whole bunch of things. We're maintaining, but we're kind of down right now. This is a good time to beat. This is a good time to beat because we're down because I'm dead. But they've burned a lot of resources, which we've had to like burn our own to counter. Like D.Va's defense matrix is a good example of what have I done? Is a good example of like burning our resources to keep alive. But if we beat, like this is a pretty good opportunity. It turns out not to be needed. To be fair, we didn't need it because our boy Speedy Muffin, who we don't know who the hell that is, or Rando, manages to actually have a way better deadeye than theirs and kills two. Good for us. But if that had not actually Speedy actually kills like a bunch of people. I actually didn't even notice that before. Yeah, Speedy. Okay, Speedy Muffin kills the enemy McCree, kills the Hanzo. The Hanzo gets rezzed, kills the Hanzo again, and the Zen, and probably should have got the Mercy, but somehow the Mercy got away. So yeah, Speedy Muffin like carried us here. We got carried by Speedy Muffin, but like he popped off, so we get lucky. But that would have been a good time to beat because there's no other reason way to save it. So to get more into this is like there's basically two kinds of defensive ultimates or support ultimates, I should say. There's support ultimates. There's defensive ones where it's usually like the counter enemy alts or like a really bad, some shit's going down and you're like, oh man, it's a big alt, and that's Lucio's alt beat, and then Zenyatta's alt transcendence are the two big defensive alts. The other ones are tempo alts. It's like Mercy's, Coalescence. They're really good for swinging a fight in your favor, but they're not necessarily super, super impactful by themselves. They're good. They're not necessarily bad, but it's like if there's a scale of the fight and the fight is like it's going down for you, you're putting a finger on the other side and like, balancing it out. If the fight is going okay for you, you haven't won, but it's starting to like lean in your favor, well, you're putting the scale still there, and it's like, no, it's really in your favor, and you're able to like push the advantage that whatever small advantage you have, you're able to push it. So that's where you use. So it's a lot of times that you'd use Valkyrie or Coalescence almost at the start of a fight, like right away, just to like, because a fight starts even, so you immediately like give you an advantage to try and like one up them. because there's no. Sometimes there's better times, but I'm not gonna get into like all the deals. Coalescence especially is one where you can save it and find a really better use for it at certain times. But like Valk, you just Valk right away. And in fact, I think Baby Cakes actually does this. I'll point that out once she does. But for you, normally you hold your really powerful defensive ults, but in this situation where things have kind of gone a little bit south, with the main tank dead, swing it. You know, you're putting instead of putting your finger, you're putting a fist on the fucking scale temporarily because it's such a powerful ultimate that the fact that we don't have a main tank doesn't matter because now everyone's a main tank because they have so much health, and that's an opportunity to like pop off and like get a pick of our own and balance things out. Luckily, Speedy does it, so it's like you get lucky here more or less because of Speedy Muffin. But that would have been a good time because in a what should have happened there is we should have lost the fight. We should have lost that fight because I died. But the beat would have saved us. It may feel weird to like belabor this for so long when we won the fight and it didn't matter and you shouldn't have used it in retrospect, but you don't play with the idea of like, oh well, maybe our McCree will randomly kill 4 people. It's not really normal. Oh yeah, and right here, this was the time. Baby Cakes Valked. Like as soon as this fight started, Baby Cakes Valked, which is a really good use for all. This is another point, like, you could have, like, beat it at any point here to save me. It could arguably be a waste, because this feels like this should be a lost fight. But, I think we end up winning. Okay, this is also really important. I want to talk about. We are front-loading some things, but that's the way it is. So, your sensitivity seems really high, actually. There's a really good moment where you're just, like, spinning around like crazy. Like, you're just such a really high sensitivity, and you should be able to kill this Zenyatta, honestly. Like this Zen's a pretty diveable target, and it's a pretty good fight for a Lucio. He could just like discord you and like 2-tap you or something. Like he could mess you up, but you could mess him up too. And the thing is well, we will play out this fight, but you only hit him like once or twice with a couple of wubs. And I'm pretty sure a lot of it is that your sensitivity is way too high. So even though Lucio isn't like there's your support, you're not really a killer. I mean, yeah, we do mention like Reddit Lucio, you can dive people, but it's not your primary job. You can get pretty far like never really being aggressive Lucio if you know how to get your speeds and your heals and your boops, you know? But being able to win a fight like this is super, super impactful for a support. And when you can do that, it's pretty huge. Like, you could pick off Zen right here. It's a massive gain for us. So, the thing about having, like... Okay, so the thing about aim, there's a few styles of, like... I guess styles is the word? No, styles isn't the word. There's a few characters that aim differently. So, Tracer's a really good example of tracking aim. Actually, no, wait. Zarya is probably the best example of tracking aim. Like, you're literally a beam, and you just hold the beam on people. Like, you follow them around, and you have a really large clip, so it's like you're just following the beam on the player as long as possible. That's tracking. Tracer is also tracking, but it's more like... I'm getting the weeds here. Like, what tracking is like you put your cursor on the target, you hold the button, and then you follow them. That's tracking it. Flick aiming is like with a Widowmaker, where you have one shot, one kill, and a lot of times you need to like quickly acquire the target, and they could be not where your cursor is pointing, so you have to quickly readjust to like the other side of the screen, and you just like boom, flick. You don't always have to flick though. You could just put the cursor where you already know they're gonna be and just hit the button. Like, some people really flick like too much. We talked Solix flicks a lot, unnecessarily. I'll work on that a little bit, but it sometimes it's called for and sometimes it's not. And but still it's like a style. Like McCree, you can kind of flick, but with McCree's like new. Not even that new anymore, but when they upped his rate of fire, he actually kind of became more tracky, where he fires so fast that you really just want to kind of keep the cursor on him and just keep shooting. Like, like it's just keep firing. You're like a machine gun. So in this situation, we're talking about how Lucio's gun works and how his wubs work. It's a lot like tracking, because when you hit the button, it fires 4 wubs in sequence. You can't really control them at that point. They just go. And so what you want to do for Lucio's aim is you want to have the cursor on him, hit the button. The first wub should then hit because you have it on them, like you have them right in your sights. You shoot them. First wub hits. Now, obviously, they're moving around, right? So the first wub hits, but now you have to make sure that the next 3 wubs also hit. So you have to follow them around and track them to make sure those wubs hit. Now, because your sensitivity is so high, your ability to adjust carefully with like being able to like slowly like, oh, we're moving that way, they're moving that way, is really hindered because you're just like all over the place with the movement. You can't get the fine precision that's needed for tracking aim. And so a lot of wubs whiz. And because of, why are we not, where are we here? Oh, we somehow broke the camera. So because of, you're not like acquiring the target for one before you start shooting, you end up missing the first shot because you're being too panicky in the first place. And then you're missing all the other shots because you never acquired the first shot, which is part of it. And then you might have gotten the first shot, like I think you get the first shot here, but then as we see, like you're all over the place with your shots. Like you shot over here and he's all the way over here. Like you're not aiming. You're just not aiming. You're just like you're just like holding down the button, and your mouse is just going everywhere. So be way more deliberate with your shots. Like don't hold down the button. Hit it every time. Acquire the target. Get the wubs. Probably mess with your sensitivity to get to a place you like it. I'm not gonna get in super detail because it also there's a lot of factors of like how you aim. We'll probably just talk about it person because whether you arm aim or wrist aim matters about your sensitivity. Like I wrist aim, so my sensitivity is way higher than most people because most people arm aim, and I think generally arm aiming is better, like in general. But I'm an old man and I wrist aim, like I ain't changing, so I have to have my sensitivity higher because I just don't move my hand as much as an arm aimer would. So I have to have it higher to be able to move it at all, basically. But it still kind of limits me in some way. So it depends on what you do and what your sensitivity should be. But still, even though I have it higher, since I don't move that much, it does sort of balance out. But you clearly are probably arm aiming and the sensitivity is just too high. And you're just bouncing around everywhere. And maybe I'm wrong about it and you're just not acquiring the target well enough. But yeah, look at how you're just whipping around. Like it's so frantic. Like just imagine if you were landing your shots on the Hanzo too. Like you were right above him. Lucio is like, if you can aim really well with Lucio, you are a god. Like in that scenario where you were literally right above Hanzo, if you hit every shot, you pretty much can't miss his head because you're right above him. Like if you're hitting him, you're gonna hit his head. And I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it's 4 wubs, all headshots, plus punch, plus boop. I think you need all of those. Will kill a 200 HP hero. I'm not 100% sure on the damage values, so maybe you only need punch, maybe you only need boop. I don't remember. But you have a kill combo that will basically kill someone in less than a second, like a DPS player. Like that's why Lucio can be shockingly effective as a damage dealer. Because if you just land all of that, you can kill someone as fast as McCree could, or as fast as a soldier could, as fast as any of the DPS could. But that's a difficult thing to do. But however, the way, again, like I like how you stick to the walls. A lot of Lucios don't stick to walls. A lot of Lucios fuck that up. So I know I'm getting to a lot of things. And you think, I'm bad. No. One of the things you've got, and a lot of people play Lucios don't get, is you stick to walls, for the most part, and that's really good. Like you were playing, like your positioning on that Hanzo was fucking perfect, but your aim wasn't there to follow up on it. If your aim was there, you had that Hanzo dead to rights, and you would have clowned him. So get that aim down, and you can just start deleting DPS players, and then you can actually be a Reddit Lucio. You can go full Reddit and you just clown DPS, but you got to be able to make those shots. It's very, very important. It's, well, I say it's very, very important, but it's some way an extra mile, because obviously a Lucio shouldn't be expected to carry that hard. But part of being an effective support is being able to do more than just heal. Actually, I would say a large part of being effective support is being more. Because keep in mind, if all you did was just walk around and like speed and heal people, what separates you from a bot, right? So, being able to dunk on players as DPS is incredibly impactful as a support player. Because the bots can't do that. So, you're kind of like, I don't want to say halfway there, but you got a lot of the right idea. You got a lot of good ideas about positioning. It's just a matter of when and where. That's what needs to be worked on, and that's, I think, very workable. Oh yeah, you go for like the sneaky boop here. I'll go. Yeah, good roll, decent rollout too. Like you're bouncing over everywhere. You're here way early. You hope for the boop. You don't get it. Return to the fight. You boop the mercy. Really good. This map in general, I think, is a lot better for you overall in how you play. For whatever reason. I mean, definitely heal a little quicker there. Like, D.Va's low, I'm low. But still, you are switching more than you were at the start of the first map. We forget to cap the point, which is a little silly. This is good, like climbing the wall. You amped a little early, but that's fun. You climbed the wall. Wasn't completely wasted. Because, yeah, like, you can't heal through the wall, you need line of sight. So, just, that's always a thing to keep in mind. Like, you can't heal through shields either. Like, if you were standing over here in this corner, you wouldn't be able to heal. This is why, like, again, like, I like a lot of your climbing walls and positioning things, because this is pretty good. Everyone's in an area of your aura. This gives you good sight lines of what's going on with the enemy. And it is somewhat dangerous. Like, you could get hooked by Roadhog and stuff. Like, there is danger here. But a lot of it is, like, if anyone shoots you, they're not shooting the tanks. And you take pressure off the tanks. And if you doing that does get a lot of value. The big problem is going to be Roadhog hooking you, which I don't think actually happens. But you're generally keeping mobile enough that it would be difficult for him to hook you anyway. Like, you're not staying up on one spot. It's all that stuff is usually like pretty good for you. This is also like good peeling to save the Genji, because yeah. But again, like the aim could have been better there. You get like one headshot, and sure you only needed one, but you know that's a situation where you're like coming straight at him. Like all four wubs should probably hit him there, right? Should probably have more than just the one. I like the boop on the Mei. Like, she's ulting, that could really screw up her aim. You speed everyone out of the ult. It's good. This is another instance of, like, beat here, right? Like, what are we saving it for? They blew Mei ult. They're whole hogging right now. Beat. What are we saving it for? Now, once again, in hindsight, I actually don't know if beat would have saved us here, because Carl ends up screwing something up and he dies. We're also really split. But one thing to know about beat and how it works is that you don't need line of sight for it is really weird. Like, it needs line of sight, but when you there's a cast time to it, right? You jump up and you hit the ground. Let's break it down, and he hits the ground, and a shockwave comes out. Well, that shockwave is not necessarily indicative of like how it hits. Like it's not like you would think that shockwave hits you, you get beat, but that's not really how it works. So it's basically like if you know anything about coding, it's a raycast. So anyone in line of sight, boom, gets it. If you leave line of sight, like before the shockwave hits you, doesn't matter, you still get it. If you enter line of sight while the shockwave is going out at any point, you get it. So there's basically a couple of seconds after you hit the ground, or even if someone was out of line of sight, as long as they enter it within that couple of seconds, they will still get beat. So in this situation where technically we're all spread out, and like you're not quite sure if you're gonna get me because I'm in this little room. Mercy's over here. You don't know if she's gonna get hit. You don't. There's people I think above you. Like I think Solix is above you. Genji. Solix. I don't know. But because of that window you have, you're probably gonna get enough of us to make a difference. But because Carl dies, we might still lose this. But again, this is a beat opportunity that you should probably have taken. It would have been smart to take it. And it probably would have hit me. It would have hit Mercy. It would have hit a few people. I think it might have made the difference. We don't know. But this was beatable. And the line of sight issue is not necessarily a problem. Probably a little bit aggressive there. Although I mean, I think you were trying to like, hey Genji, I'll help you. I will save you, Genji. Right, let's look at the thought process here. I actually don't know if you're going in there because Solix isn't there. I feel like you're just going in there because you feel the fight's lost. And you're just like, fuck it. But again, follow the main tank. Like, in this situation, like, I mean, I guess you could try and say you're trying to help the Blade, but they beat it. Like, this is a lost fight, honestly. Especially at this point, because we lost Carl. Speedy Muffin, God rest his soul. But, I'm over here. I'm in critical. Really, we should be going for stall. Like, if we're not going to commit beat, right? We're not committing beat. We're basically saying this is a lost fight. So, just try and live. And so don't get super aggro here. Just stick with me. Because I'm over... this is again. I'm back here because I know we're fucked. We're dead. So, I get out of this the death hole that is this room. I put myself on the opposite side of the pit to try and do anything I can to mitigate as much damage as possible and stay alive to just prolong the timer because we still have point control. And honestly, you should be doing the same. Like, you could be, amp healing me right now, and that would be huge to keep me in the fight. And I go back in, but it's like a lost cause. I think the only reason I go back in is just to see them all grouped up and I get like a ton of ult charge for doing it. Because I got like 30%? 40%? I got like 40% ult charge for doing that. I'm just like, whatever. Feeding my ult, fools. This little poking is a little bit... Okay, so the poking is okay, but it's unnecessary because you already have ult. If you didn't have ult there, I think it's like you're getting your shots in, you're getting a little bit of ult charge. Because you have ult, there's no real point. Like, your main concern is, like, how am I going to use my ult? I think you actually... Wait, don't you use it here? Oh, yeah, you do. So, like... But in that situation, like, if you've already mentally committed to, like, okay, we're going in, we're ulting. I don't know what Speedy. Poor Speedy. If we're going in, we're ulting, then you should be playing safer, right? Like... A lot of times in between these fights, again, hit tab between every fight, figure out what you're going to do. At some point in this process, you decided you're going to hit beat, because I don't think I said engage with beat. I don't think I did. Maybe someone called it out. I don't remember. I'm going to assume no one did, and let's just say you did it on your own. Because honestly, you probably should have, because in between fights, you should probably be thinking about how you personally will help impact the fight to get a win. Right? Like... Don't be a bot. Try and figure out, okay, how do I win this? So, you have beat, that's how you're going to win it. So if you have beat, and your win condition is, I'm going to use beat, and we're going to yeet into them, and hopefully get kills, then don't, like, run across them and, like, potentially get picked. It's pretty unlikely. Like, what you were doing was, like, safe, you were super fast. Roadhog might hook you, but it'd be a really good hook if he did. But, like, why take the risk? Like, the win condition is you have to beat, so you can't beat if you're dead. So don't do that if there's really no purpose to it. Your actions should have purpose. Everything you do should have some sort of goal in mind and not just be like random. Like right here, you're trying to boot people into the pit. All right, that's a goal. You're not just doing it at random. It'd be nice if you were next to me and healing me because I'm almost dead. Yeah, I die. Again, if you were like on me amping heals, I'd probably live. But again, the booping into the pit is still a good idea. But that's, don't let me die in the process. Enable the main tank as your first duty. Also, when you boop someone into the pit, remember that that's where they come out from the pit. And don't stand there. Especially when it's a Roadhog. They're going to want to come back up. But so that's kind of an example of, it's a really good idea. Like, booping into the pit, huge. But don't necessarily, like, do it at the cost of, like, your first duty, which is to protect the main tank. Because you could be doing those at the same time. Like, you could have positioned differently, you could have heal or up while you're doing it, and healing me at the same time. You get a twofer. You want to be looking for, look for ways to maximize your effectiveness. Position in ways that the most amount of your team gets the most amount of your heals or speed. Okay? That's a good beat. Like you saw me critical. You see that I do that a lot. I jump straight in the air whenever I'm getting low to mitigate, but I don't really want to get out, and I'm hoping I get heals. So yeah, like you saw me jump up because I'm almost dead. You beat it. Great. Good time to beat. Yeah, that's, I mean, you switched when you shouldn't have. You should have stayed on speed, and then you had to switch back. It was unfortunate. I think I want to see that again. Like this fight, a little unfortunate. Yeah, because you're on speed, you should have stayed on speed, got on the wall. But honestly, it probably wouldn't matter. You would have probably hit the mine. The Blizzard mine combo was pretty devastating, honestly. There was like no safe place on the point. It was a bad time. And honestly, this was just a misplay on all of our parts. We should have won this. God, we should have won that. That's really where we lose the game. Like, we should have won that right there. That's so unfortunate because we had. Did we have? Oh, never mind. We didn't have Blade yet. Okay. I saw that looks like Blade, and I thought she might have Blade earlier. That's just unfortunate then. You know what we should have did is we should have played farther back. We played too aggressively. We should have played more to point and got Solix Blade. Played safer and farther back, so that's always could build Blade so we can win the fight. That's probably where we screwed up. We stayed aggressive, hoping we could sandwich them in, but that was over ambitious. We should have played safer and gotten ults. And this is where things go horribly wrong and we just lose. This is good. This is better than before. Man, I wish it wasn't 20. It was more like 10 or 5. Because before, like, you're doing the similar thing of, like, you're staying up on this high ground, good rollout, staying up on the wall, but, like, see, you getting closer first, like, I immediately yeet in, but I get demolished by the frickin' Hanzo. Or not Hanzo, the McCree. Which, nothing you can really do about that. I think he just flashbang fans me when it's get deleted. Really, that's just my fault. But, so, like, you couldn't have saved me there. But, like, what you're doing is, like, you see the Mercy in this corner. You're gonna get her. Like, for what you're doing, it's fine. Me, I fed. And, once again, though, like, the aim could be better. Like, you're shooting before you have the target acquired. You miss most of your shots. Like, you had in your head, like, exactly what you needed to do. Of that Mercy's hidden in a corner, vulnerable, I can get her. But the aim fails you because acquire the target, track it, shoot it. Because from once again, from where you're positioned, with better aim, you could have wubbed her 4 times in the head fairly easily. Because of how you're on this higher elevation, makes headshots very, very easy. If you hit her at all, you're probably hitting her head. Do the combo, she's just dead. You know? Punch wub. Is it wub punch or punch wub? I think it's punch wub, because if they wub, they're farther back, and you can't punch them. So yeah, punch wub. 4 headshots, punch wub, dead. Oh yeah, this is where I was mentioning where you were strafing at a corner and you got domed for it. It's, you do it, I think, a little too long. A little too long. Because now you're, like, on this higher level, you're shooting a bunch of wubs. See, once the shield came up, you needed to get out. Because what are you doing? You're shooting a shield, no one cares. Like, you don't do that much damage, so what are you doing here? This accomplishes basically nothing. So, don't keep doing it, because eventually, Mei... I don't know how Silks die, too. Like, Mei is just spamming at this corner, and eventually you strafe into the... You basically just strafe into the icicle. She don't know what she's doing. She's just shooting shit. She knows you keep strafing, so she's just going to keep firing the icicles, and eventually it hits you. And on me thinking that I have a team behind me, I just feed, because I don't... I didn't see 2 people got picked off from random icicle spam. And I guess that's at a point where you're getting frustrated at Mei, but, like... I mean, any character could have done that same thing. Hanzo, McCree, they're all just spamming at that corner trying to shoot someone. Like, once you're not able to, like, you don't do that much damage, really. You can with headshots with 4 webs, but against a shield, your damage is pretty insignificant. So, why like, take the risk? You know, risk versus reward. Your risk is you get randomly headshot by Mei. Your reward is do a little bit more damage to the shield? It's not a big reward. Not worth it. And yeah, you should just get out at this point. Like, this is a get out. I think there was... Probably didn't matter. But, I think you, like... Let's look at this, because that's how I was rambling. Man. Like, we go in. Speedy Muffin dies. He feeds. I think what I'm getting at is you should have went for the bongo. Like, you just kind of go in, like, everyone's gonna stuff, you're like, I'm not sure what I'm doing. Things are going horribly. It's a little rough. Right there, you probably should have went for the bongo. I mean, honestly, it doesn't matter. Like, we've lost this. But if you're gonna go in, try and do something, probably go for the bongo. Because it's so dangerous. Throw some shots in that bongo. Especially if you don't, like, Copac it. Shoot that bongo. But honestly, you probably should have gotten out and, you know, way faster. But assuming the team didn't just, like, die horribly, that you should have went for the bongo there. Because if the team had not been already dead, the bongo would have killed us. So... And yeah, we never get to do this in team fight. Honestly, I think we're just staggering in a lot. It's a bad time. Too many people get picked off randomly. Sometimes it's me, sometimes it's you, sometimes it's Solix. Like, Speedy Muffin gets picked off. Like, everyone gets picked off at some point. It's just not a good time. But I think we might... Actually, oh yeah, I forgot we win this fight. Yeah, there's time in the video. That's the giveaway. We actually win this fight somehow, I think. Honestly, I'm not even sure. This is such a mess. We really should have gotten our own Mei. Not to counter their Mei. Like, they're, like... To briefly talk about, like, oh man, the Mei, how do you beat it? Because that was mentioned at the time, like, how do you counter a Mei? You just shoot her. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, you just shoot her. Mei is thought to be like this impressively just dominant character, and it makes me laugh. Like, even the Mei changes they made, like, they buffed her some, but they didn't really change that much. Wall has just always been really good. But that's the strongest part of her kit. Really, Ice Block isn't that good. It's the worst invulnerability get out of jail free card ability in the game. Like Fade, Wraith, Recall, all better than Ice Block. Because they all have mobility to them. Ice Block, you use it, you're stuck. And that's a really bad time. Because if you were in a position to need it in the first place, a lot of times that position doesn't change. Like against dive and specifically, because I've heard people recently say that Mei is a dive counter. She's not by herself. In a composition designed to counter dive, she can exist in that and be good because she's not easy to dive. But the thing is that if you dive on Mei, who's standing there and she ice blocks, you're still surrounding on Mei. Like she's still trapped in a team that's going to kill her as soon as she gets out. For every bonus Mei has against a dive, she usually has a drawback too. It's kind of a wash. But where Mei suffers more is usually long range encounters. This is why I say you just shoot her. McCree versus Mei, McCree wins. Short range or long range, McCree wins. Widowmaker should win if like Widow just shoots her in the first shot because Mei needs 2 shots. Mei can kill a Widow, but Widow has the first shot to kill her. Soldier, like the burst damage is way higher. Like most of the long range characters will beat a Mei in a 1v1 scenario and will out damage her and can outperform her. And where she really doesn't counter dive is that dive just circumvents her wall, and the wall is the strongest part of her kit. So a Reinhardt has problems getting around the wall. It's a huge, huge problem for him. But dive doesn't care. Dive just plays around the wall, just goes over it. Like you got walled off one point. You just climbed the wall and you went over it. Who cares? It's like. Poof. So when I went into this, I thought maybe you were diving the Mei the whole time and getting frozen. Because yeah, as a Lucio, you don't want anything to do with a Mei. You don't fight Mei. Because again, range beats Mei. You're not really long range. You just like do random wubs, and you're not getting 4 wubs at long range. You're not tracking that. Again, tracking does very poorly at longer ranges. It's better for closer range. The closer you are, the easier it is to track someone. Which is why most tracking characters are short range characters like Tracer, and to some extent Zarya. But no, Zarya is pretty short range. She doesn't go far. Like her range is basically the same as Tracer's. So you don't do long range encounters as Lucio. So Mei is going to be a problem if you're close to her. But yeah, her right clicks are a good long range spam, but they're very low damage. This guy was like, oh man, this Mei is like screwing us. I was kind of confused watching this because I don't feel like anything you did was really hampered by the Mei a whole lot. Like Mei didn't. She killed you a couple times, but like that could have just as easily been anyone else. It was more on you and how you were engaging by like trying to take a longer range fight when that's not really what your character wants to do. Your character doesn't want to fight at long range. You don't have damage fall off, but you just don't. You're not gonna hit enough shots to do that most of the time, unless you get really lucky, or they position really poorly and just kind of stand there and take it. So yeah, like you against like Mei here was honestly mostly irrelevant to our success. I think that McCree did more, especially on this one where he just would fan us and kill us. We should have countered their ball more. We should have got our own Mei just to counter ball. Like Mei is really good against ball. In terms of dive, Mei destroys ball. But Winston, I don't care about Mei as Winston. I didn't give a shit that they had a Mei. I just play around the shield. I didn't get frozen that much. I play around the shield. Doesn't matter. She's very like Mei is very bad against Winston. So we probably should have had some switches. We were doing really bad. In terms of you, like okay, so summarize. Stop ranting for a minute. Summarize. Beat timing. Understand when to beat. If save it for when you need to save it. If you don't need to save it, then use it as a tempo. Use it to engage. Be quicker on it. That's always one of the biggest like. I've heard so many times, like throughout my years of living, all my life, that oh man, like platinums and golds, wherever they throw away their ultimates. Ooh, they waste them. They don't know how to use them. What I have found more frequently is that they don't use them at all. Is the problem? More than not, more than like there is times where they overuse them. Well, like everyone will push Q, like 4 people push Q, and you would have won the fight with 1 Q. One ult's all you needed. Okay, yeah, that happens, but that's more organizational. What I feel happens a lot, and what kind of happened here to some extent, like it's not really why we lost, not really, but that's more of a hindsight thing. Just because we didn't lose because of it doesn't mean you don't still always play that way. Is that, you know, you could have ulted sooner and had a bigger impact in the fight if you had. Might have saved other people from using ults because they wouldn't need it then with the beat because then we just went with the beat. Um, know where your beat is needed, like when you need to save it. They have a Genji, you need to save it. They have like a visor, you might need to save it. What ultimates do it? I'm not gonna list them all. There's so many ults. Um, know that, and when you don't need to, just use it. So ultimate use could be a little better. Positioning, like knowing when, uh, just like when to stay on the tank, when not to stay on the tank, when poke. Like a lot of your wall stuff is pretty good. I like it, but with the dive, you want to stay with. You want to be a lot more with the Winston healing him. Less speed probably. With Reinhardt, I mean, even with Reinhardt, you want to stay with him. Like when you go on a flank, when you get aggressive, you usually want it as an opportunity of someone who's singled out. You want it at a time when the tank doesn't need you. You know, if the tank needs you, you need to stay with the tank. That's your job. That's job one. But when it's a situation of like no one's dealing with that Widowmaker and you can get to that Widow pretty safely and you could probably fire, sure, go ahead. Because that's going to have more impact than just kind of standing behind Ryan Shield and like speeding. But in this situation with the dive, the way they're playing it, redditing as much as, especially in some of like the first map, unnecessary. Stay with the tanks, enable the tank, try and figure out what the tank wants to do, help them do it. Um, and yeah, work on aim. Work probably lower your sensitivity. We can talk about that more next time we talk. But yeah, like steady your aim, all that shit. That's probably the three big things.